friends. This is Andrew Phipps, and I'm glad that you are with us today. Hopefully you can be with us for the entire program. Today, I am focusing a good deal, or primarily, upon the subject of education. It has been said that education allows a window where a wall might have been built. I do believe that in education, we're leading people into more knowledge and leading them from their lack of understanding. A good friend of mine made an observation. He said education is the process of changing attitudes with a corresponding change in behavior. In other words, if the attitude and behavior are not influenced in the teaching, perhaps we need to rethink what we're doing. Education encompasses a great deal. A good friend of mine, who is a public school teacher, Jack Bember, said this. He said, since the early 1960s, concerned American citizens have been wary of our public education system. God has been banned from the textbooks and banished from discussions, even to the point of being ridiculed by atheist teachers and administrators who champion materialism and self-worship. And I think this may be particularly true at the college level and different places. In the state of Indiana, we spend over half of the state's budget on public education. For example, this is not a criticism, but just a comment. I think the Indiana public school superintendent, the salary is somewhere around $95,000. But for the city of Indianapolis, it's closer to $250,000. Back to what Jack Bember said, he said that we have seen in education this approach has miserably failed 3 generations of students. At their best, public schools can deliver solid content, educating students in the disciplines they wish to master, while reinforcing the basic precepts of citizenship, patriotism, and providing appropriate discipline. At their worst, public schools, especially in our cities, charge the taxpayers $20,000 per year per student in order to produce graduates, unfortunately, who cannot read or do math functions above a 5th grade level. For example, in 2019, the entire public school system of Baltimore did not graduate one student, not one, who could read and do math at grade level. These students surely know how to use Snapchat and TikTok. They're skilled in the latest birth control techniques and have quite a high dose of self-esteem. However, this is not why parents send their children to school. So we have to analyze and think, where is all the money going? What kind of results are we getting? I believe that at the state level, about 37% of our students are graduating. We have some serious problems in education, and I think it's going to take a lot of study and a lot of diligence to come up with some great answers that will be beneficial primarily to the students and to the homes they represent, and we'll be back in just a moment. As a continuation of our teaching about the monies that are expended for education, and we know that it's each year increasingly the schools ask for more money. So where is all the money going? First, I believe it's going to overprotected and underperforming unionized teachers who have forgotten how to educate students, that is, if they ever knew. It is going to administrators, especially superintendents, who cannot create safe and educational environments in which students can be expected to learn. Millions upon millions of dollars are sent to so-called education companies who train teachers how to be more sensitive, less demanding, and less content-driven. Even in Indiana, the state has mandated emotional learning, which has nothing to do with the standard curricula. But with training students to accept immoral sexual behavior as normal, among other topics inappropriate for the classroom. It is estimated that the knowledge taught from kindergarten through 12th grade could be mastered in 8 years. Why does it take 5 more years than it should? The answer is simple. Public schools waste several years of a student's life dealing with discipline issues and classroom activities and subjects that are not germane to core education. It is time for parents and grandparents and students to demand better, especially in underperforming schools. While it is true that solid families raise better performing students, it is not excessive to demand better for our most vulnerable students. The time has come to allow every parent the choice of sending their children to private schools via the voucher system, thus giving them the same option their wealthier counterparts and politicians maintain. In other words, I do not think a student's educational expectations should be based upon a zip code where they live. I think that education that started way back with the Morrill Act maybe in 1862 with land-grant colleges being funded by the sale of land, etc. There has been a push, and rightfully so, that people need to be educated. But I think it's high time that we come to grips with the reality of the facts and seize those facts and deal with them accordingly. It doesn't make good sense to do the same things over and over and expect a different result. I think that it's time for us to really clarify and think through, and I believe, as has been said by so many, we need to attend school board meetings. Some of you maybe need to run for school board and serve on that and be aware and help us to know what kind of textbooks. We don't need textbooks like Heather has 2 mommies that are in certain places in the nation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Friends, it's wonderful today to have a longtime friend, Micah Clark of the American Family Association, and I've known Micah for many, many years, and someone that has been in the trenches, that works fearlessly to uphold our values in the state of Indiana, and someone that fights for the family. And Micah, I just want to thank you for coming to join us today.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on. I appreciate your friendship that goes back over 20 years.
20 years. And Micah, I want you to take just a few minutes. I wish we had a lot of time, but just a few, 2 or 3 minutes here. And I know you are involved with subcommittees as you give testimony and you appear before the legislature quite frequently. What are your thoughts about what can we do in the field of education?
Yeah, Andrew, right now I'm getting a lot of phone calls from parents. One of the things that's happened with COVID is that, of course, kids came home from school, and I think one of the benefits of that is that a lot of parents saw what their students were being taught through Zoom meetings and through doing school at home. And a lot of parents are really upset right now about two big issues I'm hearing about. One is sex education, transgenderism, homosexuality being taught in the classroom, shocking things about sexual activity that parents did not know their kids were being taught. And the second thing involves an item called critical race theory, which has roots in Marxism. And I've been reading a couple books about this, one from Dr. Erwin Lutzer of the Moody Church and one from Voddie Baucham called Fault Lines. It's hard to understand that our nation would have people actually promoting Marxism, but that is where this has its roots. It's different than racial reconciliation, which a lot of churches are involved in, which is a good thing. There's really only one race. As Christians, right. We're human. We all came from one person. But telling kids and teaching kids that if they are white, they're racist by their nature, it's kind of like telling Asian kids they're responsible for Pearl Harbor. It's just not true. But it's concerning because we can't have a nation, a free republic, that grows up teaching an entire generation to hate their country and that America is bad. We're the only nation in history that lost 600,000 people in a war to end slavery. Our founders set up things a lot of people don't understand. You do very well. That our founders set up a way to end slavery through our Constitution. Right. And so America is not perfect, but you can't teach kids to hate America and expect our nation to survive. So those are two big issues. One of the things I would recommend parents do, 2 hours in church a week is not enough to counter 30 or 40 hours in the classroom. You've got to know what's going on, what's being taught in class, and counter that at home with some real education of other issues and issues from a biblical worldview perspective. Know what your kids are being taught, teach them the truth, and then I would encourage kids and parents to get involved in worldview training at their church or through other ministries that teach kids about these issues from a biblical perspective. So parents are going to have to do their homework as well. Study up what's being taught, study on these two issues or other issues of concern. And then lastly, as you know, having been a school teacher, parents very rarely go to school board meetings. If 10 or 20 parents show up at a school board meeting and express concerns politely in a Christian manner, I think that can have a big difference across the state.
Right. Thank you so much for that good advice. And it's been said that our parents were the first and maybe our most important teachers. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so true, that parents that do their diligence to teach the children. And so we need that kind of home involvement. Mm-hmm. Micah, how do I thank you enough for stopping by? And you've always been a great friend, and I appreciate the efforts and the impact that the American Family Association makes daily for us.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate this show. I'm glad you've got a new show. In addition to your years and years of gospel music, you've always been an activist, always been concerned about the direction our country's going and trying to educate people, particularly in churches, to stand up and speak and to be a salt and light in our community. It's very important, so I appreciate this new show.
Thank you, Micah. And we have so many ways to get our information today. There is a website called nationsreportcard.gov, nationsreportcard.gov. And according to nationsreportcard.gov, as of 2019 in the state of Indiana, in mathematics at the grade 4 level, 47% were proficient. At grade 8, 37 were proficient in the subject of mathematics. Reading at grade 4, 37% were proficient. At grade 8, 37% proficient. In science at grade 4, 42% proficient. At grade 8, 36% proficient. So in writing at grade 4, 26% proficient. And we can see as the students go into higher classes, as they go from the primary level to the secondary level, it seems like the scores do not improve. It appears that they are decreasing. And we wonder, how can this be remedied? I think, first of all, we need stable homes. The home is the beginning. of our education. I think it was President Garfield that talked about the teacher that impacted him so much. He said, I wouldn't trade the instruction that I got from him for all the libraries in the world. And we have a lot of priorities that are maybe misplaced. For example, we can build maybe the world's largest gymnasium, but we seem to neglect libraries. We seem to maybe neglect some of the other tools that are more advanced for learning. But in the final analysis, a parent that's encouraging that student to be dedicated to the task, that oversees homework, that helps where possible. And certainly, we need homes where the teacher is not scorned and ridiculed and demonized. We have to have respect in the classrooms. That means the teacher ought to be in control. I think if the teacher is a accredited teacher, professionally accredited, has a license to teach, and is of moral turpitude, that teacher needs to have some authority. That teacher should not be undermined by any administrator or anyone else. That teacher should be the boss in the classroom. Does that mean that they could do arbitrarily or capriciously anything? No, but within reasonable guidelines that affect the health, the safety, the welfare of that student, the teacher ought to be in control. I think, therefore, when we think about our educational system as parents, we can do a great deal to help if we'll do it. Students have to be taken to school, or they have to have the assurance that they're going to school. We can't have students that miss half of the school year and expect them to be meeting the proficiencies needed at that grade level. So parents have to make sure of that. Students ought to know what is appropriate for the classroom. We shouldn't send our students to the classroom not properly attired. And by the same token, teachers need to set the example. We don't need to try to become everybody's friend. We should be friendly, but the teacher ought to try to his or her ability to teach. Set the example. Have something for which the student would like to emulate. I know when I was teaching, I tried to impress in my applied economics class that we ought to look nice, especially when we had guests in that were helping the students. So on Fridays, my young men wore dress shirts and ties. And I know that may sound odd or may sound abnormal for the public schools, but it's the truth. I never punished anybody, nor did I reward anybody for not meeting those expectations. I simply, by encouraging and helpfulness, the students complied. I think sometimes students are just looking for somebody that they can know that represents authority, that represents somebody that cares for them. The teacher sets the example, and it's been said that the teacher affects eternity, and I believe that's probably right. We never know how that, as in the educational community, that we may affect students for their entire lifetime. Education is not just a one-time experience. Education is an ongoing process. We learn, or should, from the time we enter the world until we leave this world. We need to study. We need to study things that are palatable, things that are helpful, things that do us good. We ought to keep our minds off of the ugly and the kinds of junk and the kinds of information that is serving us to no good. For example, I don't have to eat out of a garbage can to know that's where to know that that's not where I want to get my food. We need wholesome materials. I really believe that if the teachers could recommend good materials for the students to study, and especially in English, the literature, my, what powerful literature that we studied in my growing up. We studied some wonderful authors. Did we agree with every author? Probably not. But you know, we have to agree to disagree. Learning is that acquisition of knowledge that will make us a better citizen, that makes us a better parent, that makes us a better husband, a brother, a better mom in the home. In other words, something that's we used to call deportment, how we carry ourselves. We used to get assigned letters, whether it was excellent or satisfactory or unsatisfactory, and how that we behaved in the classroom. Were we punctual? Were we responsible? Did we do our work in a timely manner? Were we careful how we presented ourselves? Were we ugly? Were we people that wanted to injure or hurt other people? No, those were the kinds of things that we got grades in as well. I hope this segment has helped you. We'll be studying more about it. I think it's a wonderful subject. I have enjoyed it. This is Andrew Phipps. I hope you have a great day.
Phipps Faith, Family, and Freedom, brought to you by Blue Gate Restaurant and Bakery, Shipshewana, Heritage Funeral Care, Knightstown, Ashton Surveyors, Muncie, Hillsdale Farm, Randolph County, Cardinal Exteriors, roofing specialists serving the Muncie area, Dr. Jeff Hiltz, Muncie,